Good morning and welcome back to Collecting Cars. I'm really pleased today to have Alfaholics joining us, and Andrew and Max Banks. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us on what hopefully is a sunny spring morning for you down in Bristol.
Good morning, Edward. Yes.
Yeah, it's sunny in Cleveland today.
Sunny in Cleveland, yeah, good. Well, look, I'm sure everyone's now heard of Alfaholics because they've sort of, you guys will tell us a bit of your history, but you've had some brilliant press over the last few years whilst the sort of resto mod scene has sort of exploded around the world, and your product has had some great exposure. I think it's recently been featured in Top Gear as well. And you guys are doing some amazing work. So why don't you just give us a start off and tell us a little bit about yourselves and where Alfaholics has come from?
Well, I suppose you've got to go right back to the 1970s when our father started playing with these cars. I think it was 1977 when he did the British Production Car Championship with what was then the new 2-litre Alfetta. And he did that quite successfully. And then in the 1980s, he began restoring these Alfas, these 105 series Alfas, and really started to make a name for himself and built up a reputation for restoring them and being the go-to person on 105 series Alfa. And that was really all throughout the 80s when Max and I were growing up. So, we kind of, we knew nothing else than seeing all these cars around and going to school in them and going on holiday in them. And, there were just Alfas all over the place. And I get, that was exciting as a child growing up. That was amazing. And then the recession hit in the sort of early 90s. And, that was pretty tough. That was pretty tough for the whole classic car world, I think. And, it made it difficult to really make a living from restoring the car, buying and restoring and selling them. So that was really the catalyst, I suppose, for Alfaholics, which came along in the late 90s. And then Alfaholics, the business that you see today, that started off as a mail order business, and it started selling parts to people all over the world for these cars. But in the background there all the time was this development of the cars, are starting to do suspension kits and doing drivetrains, putting twin spark engines in them, and we really started doing that in the 90s. And I think it was
were you both involved in the business then in the 90s?
No, neither of us were.
No.
We were still at school. I then went to university in the late 90s. I went to Bristol and read law, which of course had nothing to do with cars, but I was on a bit of a career path at that point. But on the side, I'd come back at weekends and we'd race this Alfa that we built, and we had a twin spark in it, and we did all the suspension, and we sort of raced that at weekends, and that was really how it started.
And that car was really sort of, if you like, Alfaholics GTAR number one. So that was Dad taking a steel-bodied Sprint GT, giving it the GTA looks, putting a twin spark engine in it, and we went racing that car at weekends. And it coincided neatly with Julius Thurgood setting up the GTA Challenge, which was a series specifically for 105 series GTs. And Andrew was driving the car, and I was running the car with my dad. And we won that championship pretty outright first year of asking. Yeah. And that was the sort of the start of the performance development process of highly tuning a 105 series in the style and the theme of a GTA, but evolving it with modern technology.
Yeah. So would you, obviously when we look at the other people out there in the market that are talked about often now in this same arena, so the Singers of the world, Eagle E-types, etc. Would you deem your project is closer to the core of what it was originally, but highly developed, rather than a reimagined version of what it was born as?
I mean, we were just kind of doing what we wanted to do and felt we were doing with the cars at the time. You know, there was never some grand plan to create a reimagined car that we were going to sell all around the world, you know, to collectors, and these incredibly high quality cars that we produce, and you know, your likes of Singer produce now. You know, they're works of art, these cars now. And back in the day, it was very much not like that. It was us going racing, us developing a car, and then really starting to get a demand for what we were doing, and it's really just snowballed and developed from there, really. So yeah, I mean, I guess the inception of it is quite different to some of the other companies, perhaps, but in the end, we're all now operating in a very similar environment, with resto mods being a very popular car to have, or desirable car to have, and that, you know, fill a gap in people's collections for what the cars give you as drivers' cars.
Okay. So bringing things forward to today, what are your functions in this business?
Well, so we run the business day to day. I mean, fundamentally, Alfaholics is still what it always was, which is the core business is mail order. So, you know, we sell all the parts that people see on the cars. You know, those are parts that you can buy from us, and you know, we have a lot of customers all around the world who are building their own versions of GTARs or whatever they want, and using the parts that we sell. So, you know, the mail order remains a very busy part of the business. We just have this add-on now, which is building the cars. We do, you know, some of the race preparation. We have our own agenda with racing as well, but that's always, I suppose, that's secondary to what the business has always been, which is mail order.
We've got a Alpha Junior ending this evening, actually, on collecting cars, which with your upgrades. So I guess you've got upgrades in all corners of the world now, have you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing, some of the countries that we do supply parts to, and places that we get calls from or emails from, and you know, it's amazing. Every week there's someone's found a car, you know, whatever country they're in, a car that's been in a barn or whatever, and they're inspired by what we do, and they want to do their own project, or they contact us, they found a car and they say, we want it to be a works GTAR. Can we get on the waiting list, and can we have a car? Yeah,
brilliant. So you've just recently delivered something quite special, which I guess is probably the first of many on order. And I saw some pictures of Richard's amazing GTAR 300 carbon. And so how long's that been in the making?
So I mean that car has been in build for 2 years, but the whole concept behind it is something that has been building for the past sort of 5 years. It's, you know, to a further reduction of weight, an increase of quality of what we can produce, and you know, that's been a brainchild that we've had to develop. It took a lot of work, a huge amount of research, a huge amount of work went into producing that car, but we knew that in the long run that was the way the project would go in the future. You know, it allows us to produce cars to a higher quality, that are even lighter than they were before. I mean, you know, we've always had brake horsepower per ton as how we rate our cars, and you know, it is a very, I guess it's something that to a degree has come from our racing background. You know, that adding lightness, taking weight out of a car is just so critical to the way that the cars feel. But you know, obviously in the world of racing, you're then not bothered by the you know, the NVH, some of the downsides that can come with making cars very lightweight. So it's trying to build in a very lightweight body shell, but then also add all the creature comforts, all the sound deadening, and get the car to feel like a highly productionized, civilized touring car, but with very little mass and inertia behind it, which is why we're using titanium extensively in the suspension. I mean, Richard's car is the first car that's got a complete titanium rear axle. So we retain the live axle setup of the cars because that's very fundamental to the feel of the car and the character of the cars. And something that's very important to us with our GTARs is that we want to evolve the cars to be the very best that they can be, but we do not want to take any of that 105 series character away from the cars. So whilst it might be easier to put an independent rear suspension in the car or to put a steering rack, a modern steering rack in the car, to do so takes away some of the very fundamental characters of the car, which from racing the cars for years, not only do we understand that character very well, but we've learned to work with those parts and to get the very best out of them, to make those work to the best that they can be. And with that knowledge, then put into the GTAR road car program with all the creature comforts and and road setup, we're achieving something that it's brilliant. It's got so much character, so much feel, but a huge amount of potential. And that billet titanium rear axle tube set is us taking the vast majority of the weight out of the live axle setup, and really unsprung weight is the one Achilles heel of a live axle arrangement. So we're taking that out. So we're retaining that character, but giving it the performance benefit.
Okay. I raced in Spain about 5 or 6 years ago, a BMW teaser against Alfas, etc. And it was the most fun I've ever had on a race circuit. And I've never driven an Alfa like yours or a BMW like that on the road. Do people drive them on the road in that same way that you can drive and control the car on the track?
I mean, you can do. I mean, the cars are small, so they're very nimble. And obviously, as we discussed, they're very light. And we do a GTAR driving tour so that all the owners of the GTARs can get together and we go to a different country. We've predominantly done it in Europe so far, and we spend a week driving the cars hard on very good quality back roads. And the pace at the front is very fast, and we're guided by Pete from Petrolhead Tours, who's a very experienced driver in a modern BMW, and he's in front setting the pace. And yeah, I mean, we're going really quickly, and you can drive for days and days absolutely flat out, completely safe, completely confidently, and it's a hell of an experience.
I mean, it's
sorry, carry on.
No, I was just saying, it's some of the best driving that I think we've ever done is taking these cars and finding the best roads in Europe and be able to enjoy them. And the character of the cars does shine through, and the fact that they are adjustable when you on the limit, and you can do so much. And because the cars are light and nimble and small, you can it gives you so many more options on the road. It's quite unlike some of the modern supercars, which are so big that you just don't have so many options when you're sort of committing to corners. And but I think we're also very fortunate that the cars are fundamentally well engineered. When Alfa produced these cars in the 60s, they were fantastic, with double overhead cam engines and double wishbone front suspension, 5-speed gearbox, discs all round. We're starting with a car that's fundamentally well engineered and very good. So what we're doing is then taking that onto the next level, but as Max says, really preserving the character, the way they drive, because the 105 series Alfa does drive in a certain way, and drives in a great way, but it's a case of just trying to enhance those qualities, really.
So going back to the new 300, you're saying that that's the future of where you're going and how you're going to build cars. How much of the original chassis and body is retained in that build?
So what we're doing is we are putting a carbon body skin on the outside in very much the same way in period when Alfa Romeo went to Auto Delta to develop a competition car for the European Championship, and Auto Delta developed the GTA, the world famous GTA. They started off with the architecture underneath the Sprint GT, and they skinned the car in aluminium to make what became the GTA. So in Auto Delta's time, it was aluminium body skins, and magnesium castings for the drivetrain and into the suspension. And what we have done is evolve that with modern technology. So we are putting a carbon body skin on the outside of the car. So to answer your question, we are retaining the 105 series chassis. And all the pickups and everything, to be faithful, correct to how the car should be. And then rather than the original steel body skin that comes off, we do an extensive amount of stiffening to the chassis while the body is off, because we can, and we've got the we've got the access with the steel body skin off to get additional stiffening tubes in and stiffen up the areas that we know the cars can have weakness. And then we're putting the carbon body skin on the outside, which is taken, off a GTAR 290, so the car that Chris Harris has driven that everyone knows, which is a steel body skin car, but with carbon boot bonnet and doors. Richard's body shell was 45 kilos lighter again.
Was it really?
Before we put any parts on it. And then, of course, with the additional titanium and the titanium rear axle, this car is sub 800 kilos to get in and drive, and it makes it, road testing it. I did 100 miles of development road testing the car before we handed it over to Richard, and the lack of inertia and the urgency of the car, and also the suppleness. So we were able to slightly revalve and change the damper settings a little bit because the body shell was lighter. So we even made the car more supple than a GCAR 290, and it's just win-win on every level.
So when you come to build your next one, which I guess you're probably on with already, or probably multiple of them, is every body slightly different, or have you found a way of sort of speeding up or making the production of these cars more simple from learning on Richard's car?
Obviously there's a degree of learning that happened with the first car, but fundamentally we're restoring a 50-year-old Alfa Romeo, so every body shell is a bit different. The manufacturing tolerances on the chassis were not what modern manufacturing tolerances are, so they all have to go on the jig. They all spend their hours on the jig to get everything to the tolerance that we need it to be in the chassis, before we then start to think about putting the carbon panels on the cars. So they're very, every car is individual. They're all hand built, and that is a process that takes a lot of hours to do to get it to the standard that we need it to be.
So I guess the two important questions for any potential purchaser of one of these is, how much is it going to be and how long is it going to take? Can you answer those questions?
Yeah, so
in a loose-ish manner.
we've got a fair waiting list. As you said at the beginning, we've had a lot of PR recently. We've been just very quietly getting on with what we do over the years and developing the product, and really the press has ended up coming to us off the back of various bits and pieces, and that's really gathered pace recently. And we took a lot of orders for cars last year and into the start of this year, so we've got a waiting list of above 5 years for cars as we stand today. And obviously we still build with, it isn't now only GTAR 300s. If you want to have a GTAR 290 and retain the steel body shell, you can, and some people are preferring to do that. We don't only produce one thing, very much the cars are tailored to what the customers want, and there is a range of spec and a range of things that you can have from us. But pricing wise, it's late 200s plus VAT if you're VAT applicable in the UK, upwards for GTARs.
Okay, what for a carbon body car?
Yes, so carbon body cars will go a little bit over £300,000 plus that.
Okay, good. Well, and worth every penny.
Yes, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. I know. And actually, I don't mean that sarcastically. And I don't know if you guys have found your way onto the clubhouse yet, where there's a lot for some reason, a lot of the chatter seems to keep going back to singers and alfaholics and futuristas, etc. But as a Singer owner, it's very, very difficult to describe to people who don't quite get the concept of putting that sort of money into something that's not original anymore. But the truth is, it's an investment in owning exactly what you want. And if you were to get into a 50-year-old Alfa Junior or 105 series today, in most cases, it would probably, if you'd just hopped out of a modern sports car, it would probably disappoint you. But what you're building, what Singer have done, what Eagle are doing, what Twisted do, it really keeps the joy alive of well, that's unfair to say the joy, but it can deliver on every level that a modern supercar or hypercar can deliver on, which I find that amazing. And congratulations and to you guys for doing that with Alfa.
Well, it's nice that guys like Chris are, could get in the cars and they can really enjoy them, because Max and I have spent years doing our own thing, I suppose, doing the development, and we haven't done a huge amount with the press up until fairly recently in the last few years. So we've kind of done our own thing off the back of the racing, and we've thought it's been pretty good. And then it's sort of quite heartening then when guys like Chris and guys like you can jump in the cars and go, actually, this is really this is really enjoyable, and people say I really want one of these. It's great for us.
So just a practical question here. So someone wants to come and order a car off you. They obviously have to go and find a donor car, or you find a donor car for them. Is that expensive to find the right type of donor car?
So I mean, there is the right donor car is important. So there's various parts that we have to reuse, even if it's a GTA R300. So really, from our perspective, it's quality of stainless steel trim work on the outside of the car, whilst a degree of metal finishing and then full polishing and replating could be done on these parts. Some cars over the years have had those parts really ruined, and there is a lack of supply of those sorts of parts. So from my perspective, looking at cars, whilst rust is of course a factor that you have to consider, ultimately they're going on the jig. They're having most of the metalwork in the chassis replaced anyway, all the floors, all the sills, all the cross members, all that stuff's being replaced anyway. So to a degree, some stuff like that matters a little bit less, but it's getting cars. We're trying to find cars that they're sort of nearly virgin, so they haven't been fully restored before. They've maybe had paint work, maybe they were restored in the 70s to a high standard, but they haven't been done multiple times, because it's a number of times all those trims have been taken off the car, re-drilled, etc., etc. That's the stuff that's more complicated to sort out.
Yeah. So
in terms of the cost side of that, if you're talking step front juniors, you're talking 30,000-40,000 to get the right sort of base car really for a project.
Okay, which they can trundle around in probably for 3 to 5 years before you can start their build.
And some people are doing that. So some people are going out and finding a car, getting themselves on the list, going and just using the car, getting a feel for it to understand what it was as a standard car for a handful of years, and send it to us, have the complete transformation, and then have it shipped back, and then have their mind blown by quite the transformation that's happened.
And in terms of production volumes back in the day, how many of these things are there?
I mean, they were produced in hundreds of thousands. These
fine. So there's
across all the models.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a fair attrition rate, of course, over the years, but there are plenty of cars out there. It's just finding them.
No, fine. Well, obviously, Singer used the 964, and that was pretty easy when no one wanted 964s. It was pretty easy to go and get them, but that's even changing now. And to find a good solid 964 that you're not wasting a real virgin, but to find a good car is getting quite an expensive thing, and difficult to find as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the future for Alfaholics in the medium term, other than just focusing on trying to build these cars over for a 5-year waiting list?
I mean, there's more parts development to come. There's some parts that are in development at the minute to go onto the cars to further reduce weight, and a few other little bits and pieces that will come out in due course and people will see. There's a couple of other projects that we're working on side by side that, again, in time we'll be able to release and let people know what we're up to. So yeah, there's certainly more in the pipeline, more evolution and more exciting things to come.
Fine, but and are you going to try and stick with 105 series, or you maybe move away from that a little bit?
I don't know. I mean,
I think there's so much more to do still. It's easy to think, oh, we've done that and move on and do something else, but actually we've still got ideas, we've still got fresh ideas of things that we can do with the 105 series cars. So, I think we will continue to evolve them, certainly for the time being. As Max says, we've got a couple of exciting things in the pipeline as well relating to 105. So I think it's going to keep us busy for a few years yet.
And I mean, and on that point, of course, the 105 series isn't just a GT. Everyone thinks of the Bertoni GT, but of course, you've also got your 4-door saloon, your Giulia Super, Spider, 2-door convertible, and then there are other derivatives as well. So the 105 series platform actually covers quite a few things and gives us opportunities to do different things with different cars that are all of the same family.
Yeah, no, well, good. I think it's nice to hear you say that, because I don't know if you've seen it, but I did an interview with Charles from Twisted, and you could very quickly think, oh, I'll just go towards the new Defender as well, and we'll put some wheels on it and some bumper kits and all this sort of stuff. But actually, that's not really what the business is about. He really wants to stay loyal to the original Defender and just continue to develop that, because the it's never over, I guess, is the truth.
No, good. And he's right with that. He's right with that, and also, we've got to where we are because we have specialised and in what we do in the 105 series model, and by being as knowledgeable and having gone into as much depth as we've done is why the cars are as good as they are. So that's our skill set, is those cars and really knowing them to the very deepest levels.
Well, look, guys, I thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to be on the phone to you very soon, trying to find out where I can send a brown bag of £50 notes to bump myself up a waiting list.
Well, you'll have to come down.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
I can choose the colour just over Max's shoulder there as well, because I can see them at the window.
Is there one you like?
Well, they'll all do. One of those will do, Max.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be very welcome to come and see us. Come and when you can, come and visit us and come and have a look.
No, well, actually, obviously, I'm very much respecting the lockdown because we've all been in this for so long now. I've got no interest in changing that for a few more weeks. But when we're allowed, we'll get the children down to Cornwall, and I'll stop in and see you on the way past. How far are you off the motorway? Are you off the Cleveland Junction?
Yeah, we're just a few hundred yards, so we're about 2 minutes off the junction 20. So yeah, we're really close.
Oh, super easy, perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll come and see you soon, and look forward to seeing the future projects coming out of Alfaholics.
Indeed. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks.
Great stuff. Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.